A soft-spoken CEO walks into his own dealership in disguise. What he hears a salesman say to a struggling single mom stops him cold and sets off a chain reaction that no one saw coming. Derrick Belton didn't look like a man who signed paychecks for 137 employees. He wasn't wearing a blazer, didn't carry a briefcase, and he sure didn't show up with a driver. That morning, he had on old Levi's, sneakers that had seen better days, and a Tennessee Titans cap pulled low over his brow. No one would recognize him this way, not even the regional manager he'd shared steak with 2 Fridays ago. He parked his black 2011 Honda Accord down the street. Not because he had to. The man could afford a garage full of imports. But today wasn't about showing off. He walked the extra block in silence, feeling the grit of the pavement under each step. As the dealership came into view, the signage, clean and bold with Belton Auto Group written across the glass, made him pause. His name. But what was going on under it? The complaints had started as whispers. A customer in Murfreesboro said she'd been sold an extended warranty she didn't understand. A family in Franklin claimed their monthly payment was different from what they'd agreed on. Nothing major, but enough to make Derrick wonder. This lot in Charlotte, Tennessee, had always been one of the busiest. Mid-range vehicles, solid volume. People trusted this place. Or they used to. The showroom doors hissed open as he walked in. It smelled like coffee and Armor All. A bell dinged above his head, but nobody looked up. Derrick scanned the space. 3 sales desks, 2 salesmen chatting near the corner water cooler. A woman behind the reception desk scrolling through her phone. He could have been anyone. And that's exactly what he wanted. He started with the service bay. Quiet. The techs were working, focused. Nothing strange there. He moved through the customer waiting area, watching a man flip through a magazine while his daughter played on a cracked iPad. No one offered him help. Not a good morning, not even a nod. He walked over to the row of Camrys by the glass wall. A couple stood nearby, mid-conversation with a salesman who spoke too fast and too loud. The older man was frowning. The woman looked frustrated. "Sir," the salesman said, "you're not going to find a better deal anywhere. This one's under warranty, barely used, but I can only hold this price if we sign today. It's just the way it is." Derrick lingered. That kind of pressure pitch wasn't how he'd trained people. He made a mental note. Then he turned a corner near the used inventory office and stopped. A young woman, maybe late 20s, thin jacket, baby in a carrier, was speaking to a man in a navy blazer. She looked nervous, kept glancing down at a worn envelope in her hand, probably pay stubs or her bank letter. The salesman stood confidently, too confidently, speaking with charm and certainty. "You're getting full coverage for the first 3 years," the salesman said. "Bumper to bumper, plus powertrain. If anything breaks, even the air conditioning, it's covered." That wasn't true. And the $895 fee I mentioned, that's standard. We apply that to all our deals. It covers a full pre-delivery inspection, interior cleaning, anti-theft VIN etching. Derrick froze. VIN etching? That had been eliminated from the dealership's process 3 years ago. And warranty coverage? No, that wasn't how the terms worked at all. He'd personally rewritten those contracts to be more honest, more transparent. His pulse slowed. He took a step back, out of their view, heart thudding, but not out of anger. It was disappointment. This was his business. This was his name. And this man was lying, with ease, to a woman who looked like she'd saved every cent to be here. But Derrick wasn't ready to reveal himself. Not yet. He needed to see how far it would go. Derrick slipped behind a row of brochures near the finance office, watching without being watched. The woman nodded slowly at everything the salesman said. Her fingers tightened around the envelope. The baby in the carrier squirmed and let out a soft whimper, but she barely noticed. She was trying hard to stay composed, probably calculating how close the numbers were to her budget. The salesman leaned in, lowering his voice. "You don't have to worry," he said. People get nervous about credit checks, but I know how to work the system. I'll get you in something today, even if we have to be creative." She hesitated, her eyes flicking toward the exit. But the salesman kept his tone steady, reassuring. Too smooth, too confident. Derrick clenched his jaw, then turned away. He didn't want her to feel watched. He wandered toward the far end of the showroom, where a teenage boy stood near a pre-owned SUV. A salesman walked past him twice. Didn't greet him. Didn't ask if he had questions. Just brushed right by. Derrick stepped next to the boy. "You looking at this one?" he asked. The teen glanced over, a little surprised. "Yeah, maybe. My aunt's outside. She asked me to check it out while she parks." Derrick nodded. "You know what kind of engine it has?" The kid shrugged. "Not really. She just needs something safe. Her car broke down last week." Another pass. Another customer overlooked. It stung. Not because of the lost sale, but because it told Derrick everything he needed to know. Somewhere along the way, they'd stopped listening. Stopped seeing people. And it wasn't just one bad apple. It was a tone. A pattern. He walked toward the reception desk. The woman still hadn't looked up. She tapped her screen, chewing her gum, scrolling. Derrick stood in front of her, just to test the waters. 10 seconds passed. Then 20. Finally, she looked up and blinked. "Oh, hey, do you have an appointment?" "No," Derrick said calmly. "Just browsing." She gave a lazy smile and waved a hand toward the floor. "They'll get to you." They didn't. For the next 30 minutes, Derrick wandered in and out of different departments. The only person who offered help was a young lot attendant named Trevor, no older than 19. He'd spotted Derrick near the service entrance and said, "Sir, need anything? We've got water inside. I can grab you a brochure if you're looking for the new hybrids." Derrick smiled. "I'm good, thank you. What's your name?" "Trevor." "You like it here, Trevor?" Trevor hesitated. "I mean, it's all right. People can be rude. Not just customers, like managers too sometimes. But I keep to myself." "Do they treat customers fairly?" Trevor looked at the ground. "Most of the time." It wasn't bitterness in his voice, just honesty. Derrick clapped a hand gently on the kid's shoulder. "Don't let the wrong people teach you the wrong lessons." Trevor blinked at him, then nodded once. But before Derrick could ask more, he heard a familiar laugh echo from the glass hallway. The salesman from earlier, his name tag said Brent Collar, was now walking the young mother toward a side office. She looked overwhelmed, clutching her papers like a lifeline. Derrick followed at a distance. Brent stopped outside the office door, reached into a file, and pulled out some paperwork. "Here's the first quote," he said. "Now it's gonna look high, but don't panic. I'll work it down once I get your info into the system. This is how we start." Derrick stepped closer, pretending to glance at a flyer on the wall. From his angle, he saw the quote. The numbers were padded. Warranty fee, dealership fee, VIN etching, maintenance guarantee. None of it standard, none of it approved. It was everything Derrick had fought to remove years ago. But Brent didn't look like a man afraid of breaking rules. He looked like a man who knew no one was watching. Brent motioned for the woman to sit. She eased into the chair, shifting her baby's carrier onto the floor beside her. The little girl whimpered and kicked softly, but Brent didn't even glance down. His eyes were fixed on the papers in his hand, flipping, highlighting, circling. Every movement practiced, polished, and automatic. "So," he said, "we're gonna structure this to keep your monthly under $350. Sound good?" The woman gave a slow, cautious nod. "What's your name again?" he asked, barely looking up. "Monique," she replied. "Monique Ellis." Derrick stood just outside the office, back against the wall, pretending to study the certified pre-owned display. He could hear every word. Brent grinned. "All right, Monique. So you're gonna love this. You're approved for a 2019 Corolla. Excellent condition, low mileage. That's a big win. But we want to keep you protected, right? So we're including a 3-year full coverage plan. Everything from the engine to the electronics. Even roadside assistance if you lock your keys in the car. That kind of peace of mind? Priceless. Derrick's hand slowly curled into a fist by his side. There was no such plan. Not like Brent described it. And the quote, the one he'd caught a glimpse of earlier, had extra charges tucked in every margin. Some of them were outright fiction. Monique shifted in her chair. So, all that's included in the price? Brent gave her a bright, reassuring smile. It's all part of your protection package. We just break it down separately on the form. Makes it easier for the finance office. He kept talking. Too quickly. Too confidently. He waved the pen like a magician. He even pulled out a calculator to make the payment look smaller. See? Without the package, you're looking at $384 a month. But with the protection, we knock it down to $349. Easier to manage, right? Derrick narrowed his eyes. That math made no sense. It was smoke and mirrors. He wasn't sure how Brent kept a straight face. But clearly, this wasn't his first performance. Then Monique asked a question that stopped everything. Do you think I can come back tomorrow? She said gently. I just want to make sure I understand everything first. Brent's expression shifted. Not obviously, just slightly. His jaw tensed for a second. But he recovered quickly, laying on more charm. I totally get that, he said smoothly. But here's the thing. This car's got 2 other buyers waiting. One of them test drove it this morning. I can't promise it'll still be here tomorrow. You don't want to lose out over something small, do you? Monique blinked. Her fingers twitched around her envelope. Brent lowered his voice, leaning in. Listen, I've seen people walk away thinking they'll sleep on it, and then the car's gone, and they're stuck in something worse, more expensive. You deserve better. And this is better. He slid the paperwork toward her. That was it. Derrick stepped into the office, keeping his voice calm but firm. That doesn't sound like the protection plan we offer. Brent blinked. Monique turned toward Derrick, startled. Brent recovered quickly. Excuse me? I said, Derrick repeated, that plan you're describing, it doesn't exist. Not like that. Brent raised an eyebrow, sizing Derrick up. You work here? Something like that. Brent chuckled dryly. Look, man, I don't know who you are, but I've been here 4 years. I know the packages inside and out. Derrick pointed at the quote. Show me where it says full electronics coverage. Show me where Vine etching is required. Show me the breakdown. Brent hesitated. It's in the system. Finance will explain it better. No, Derrick said flatly. You explain it, right now, in front of her. Monique stood slowly, holding her baby close. Brent's face flushed. I don't have to deal with this. You're not even... But he stopped mid-sentence. The general manager had just stepped into view behind Derrick, eyes wide. Mr. Belton? The manager said. Brent's mouth dropped open. Derrick didn't smile, didn't say a word. He turned toward Monique. I'm sorry, he said softly. This isn't how we treat people. Not here. Not under my name. But this wasn't over. Not yet. The damage ran deeper than just one lie. The room felt like it shrank the second the words, "Mr. Belton," came out. Brent's face went pale. His confident swagger vanished like steam on cold glass. Monique looked between the 2 men, confused, still holding her baby against her chest, unsure what she'd just stepped into. Derrick turned slightly to the general manager standing in the doorway. I need a conference room, he said quietly. Now. The manager, a red-faced man named Jeff Lorman, nodded and motioned toward a hallway at the back of the showroom. Derrick looked to Monique and offered a soft, steady tone. Please, come with me. I want to make this right. She hesitated, then followed. Her steps were slow, uncertain. The baby began fussing again, maybe from the sudden tension in the air. As they walked past the desks, the entire floor seemed to go still. Phones stopped ringing, conversations paused. A few employees peeked over cubicles and leaned toward each other, whispering. Trevor, the lot attendant from earlier, stood near the entrance and gave Derrick a look of recognition, but didn't say a word. Inside the small glass-walled conference room, Derrick pulled out a chair for Monique and sat across from her. Jeff followed them in, looking visibly anxious. Brent trailed behind, trying to look unaffected but failing. He crossed his arms and leaned against the far wall. Derrick reached for the folder Brent had placed on the table. "This the quote you gave her?" he asked without looking up. Brent shifted. "Yes?" Derrick flipped it open, spread the pages out and circled several numbers with a pen from the holder on the table. "Explain these," he said. Brent straightened up. "Look, I don't know why I'm being grilled. Explain them." A pause. Brent glanced at Jeff, hoping for backup, but Jeff kept his eyes down. I mean, those are common charges. Everyone includes them. Do you have a document that shows these fees are approved?" Derrick pressed. "They're in the system." "No, they're not," Derrick said, voice firmer now. "I helped rewrite the system. That VIN etching fee? Discontinued in 2021. Powertrain coverage? Limited to 5 years, not the full coverage you promised. You tacked on over $2,000 in fake fees to a woman who walked in here just trying to buy a safe car for her baby." Monique's hands trembled slightly as she listened, but she said nothing. Her eyes stayed fixed on the paper. "You said the payment would be $349? Derrick continued. "That's only possible if she makes a down payment you never mentioned. And even then, the interest rate you quoted her is inflated by at least 2.5%. You're not just bending the truth, Brent, you're breaking it." Brent pushed off the wall and stood straighter. "Look, I've hit my targets every quarter. Customers drive off happy. I know how to sell, all right?" Derrick leaned forward. "You know how to pressure. There's a difference." Jeff finally spoke. "Derrick, I didn't know he was doing all that, I swear. We've been busy and the numbers have been good." "That's exactly the problem," Derrick cut in. "You cared about the numbers. I cared about the people." Monique stood then, slowly, her face flushed with embarrassment and anger. I thought this was a good place," she said quietly. "I really thought this was different." Derrick turned to her. "It was supposed to be. And I'm sorry it wasn't." He reached into his back pocket, pulled out his wallet, and took out a card. "This is my direct line. I'm going to personally make sure you get a fair deal. If you want the car, you'll get it. At the right price, without the garbage." She took the card slowly. "Thank you. And we'll have someone else handle the paperwork," Derrick added. "Someone who doesn't invent numbers." Brent's arms dropped to his sides. "Clean out your desk," Derrick said, standing. "You're done here." "But no negotiation. You knew better. You just didn't care." Brent didn't argue again. He stormed out, muttering under his breath. No one followed him. Derrick turned back to Jeff. "We're not done talking either. I'll see you in your office in 10. Then he opened the door for Monique and walked her back toward the lobby. Heads turned. Conversations started up again, hushed and guilty. Derrick didn't speak until they reached the reception desk. He looked at the woman behind the desk. "You greeted her when she walked in?" The receptionist swallowed. I don't remember." Derrick shook his head slowly. "Start remembering. Or start looking." But firing one man wouldn't fix what was broken. Derrick knew the culture had to change, or the company would rot from the inside. Derrick sat alone in Jeff Lorman's office, staring out at the floor of the dealership through the blinds. The silence was thick. From behind the closed door, the usual showroom noise had returned. Light conversations, footsteps across tile, phones ringing. But there was something else in the air now. Tension. He turned when Jeff walked in, his steps hesitant. The man looked smaller than usual, like someone who'd just realized how much he'd been asleep at the wheel. Jeff sat without being asked. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "I swear to you, Derrick, I didn't know Brent was doing that." "But you knew something," Derrick replied. "You knew complaints were rising. You knew deals were getting more aggressive. You knew customer satisfaction scores dropped last quarter, and you blamed it on surveys." Jeff didn't answer. Derrick leaned forward, elbows on the desk. What happened to what we built here? I thought we were doing okay, Jeff said. Numbers were strong. Staff turnover was low. I figured, maybe the industry just changed a bit. The industry didn't change, Derrick said, keeping his voice level. We changed. We forgot why people came here in the first place. We stopped treating buyers like people and started treating them like numbers to hit. Jeff exhaled, rubbing his face. So what now? We clean house, Derrick said. And not just by firing Brent. I want every deal from the last 90 days reviewed. Refund anything that wasn't clearly explained. And I want one-on-ones with each salesperson. I want to hear how they're trained, what they're told to prioritize. I want to know who else thinks it's okay to sell lies with a smile. Jeff nodded slowly. And one more thing, Derrick added. I want Trevor in my office next week. Jeff blinked. The lot kid? Yeah, he's one of the only ones who looked a customer in the eye today. That matters. A knock at the door interrupted them. It was the receptionist, now visibly nervous. Mr. Belton, the customer, Monique Ellis, is still in the lounge. She said she's waiting for her ride. Derrick stood. Good. Get her a bottle of water and offer her a seat in the private lounge, not the plastic chairs by the vending machine. Treat her like someone who matters. The receptionist nodded quickly and vanished. Derrick walked back out into the showroom. A few employees looked up, but no one said a word. Some avoided his eyes altogether. Monique sat in the far corner, baby now asleep in the carrier beside her. She looked tired, not just physically, but emotionally drained. He approached quietly. I know this was a lot, he said. More than you bargained for. She offered a faint smile. I've been through worse. I believe you, Derrick said. But that doesn't mean you should have had to go through this, she shrugged. People lie to me all the time. At work, at stores, even at the clinic. I'm used to it. That hit harder than he expected. Well, you shouldn't be. And not here. That's on me. She looked at him now. Really looked. Why'd you come in today? Dressed like that? Derrick smiled softly. Because people don't tell the truth to the man in the suit, she chuckled quietly. Guess not. He handed her a small folder. If you still want that car, these are the real numbers. Nothing hidden. I had our finance manager run it personally, and we added a year of service maintenance free of charge. Her brows raised. Why? Because someone has to remind this place what it stands for. A few minutes later, her ride pulled up. A silver hatchback with a missing hubcap. Her sister waved from the driver's seat. Monique stood, adjusted the carrier, and looked back at Derrick. Don't let them ruin what you built. I won't, he said. She walked out without looking back. But it wasn't just Monique's trust that needed rebuilding. It was the trust of everyone who ever stepped through those doors. Derrick returned 3 days later. This time, no disguise, no cap, no jeans. He wore a tailored navy suit and walked in through the front doors like he owned the place, because he did. But this wasn't a power move. It was accountability. The entire staff had been notified that morning. Meetings were cleared, phones rerouted to voicemail. The dealership was still open, but no sales would happen before 11 a.m. Derrick had scheduled an all-hands meeting, and everyone showed up, even those who worked part-time shifts. They gathered in the break room, crammed together between vending machines and worn-out chairs. Some leaned against the walls. Trevor stood in the back, arms crossed but listening. Jeff sat near the front, notebook open but untouched. Derrick stood before them. No microphone, no podium. Just his voice. I built this company in 2004, he said. Not with investors or a franchise deal, but with a used car lot behind a barbecue joint in Murfreesboro. I sold 3 cars in the first week and washed each one myself. A few people chuckled quietly. Back then, I didn't know if I'd make it. But I had 2 things. My name and my word. I never promised what I couldn't deliver, and I never looked someone in the eye and lied to close a deal. The room was silent now. But some things changed here, he continued. And it's not just one salesman. It's how we let small things slide. How we put pressure ahead of patience. How we've started seeing people as sales goals, not human beings. That's not what I built. That's not who we are. He looked around the room. If you've ever added a fee because you thought you could get away with it, if you've ever rushed a woman out the door because she didn't look like she could pay, if you've ever talked down to someone just because you could, today is your wake-up call. A few people shifted uncomfortably. You have a choice, he said. Either help me fix this or find another place to work. There's no in-between. Silence again. Then a voice from the side. It was Trevor. Mr. Belton. Derrick turned to him. Yeah? Trevor looked nervous, but spoke anyway. What if some of us were doing things right? But no one ever noticed? Derrick smiled. Then we start noticing. Starting today. He walked over and handed Trevor a small envelope. Inside was a letter of promotion. Lot attendant to junior sales associate, with full training and benefits. Trevor blinked. Are you serious? As a heart attack, Derrick said. Because the people who treat others with respect are the ones I want representing my name. After the meeting, changes happened fast. Brent's deals were reviewed. 5 of them required full or partial refunds. Monique's case was used in a training seminar. Every single manager was required to take part in a 3-week ethics and customer care workshop. Derrick even brought back a retired employee, Arlene Cupp, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who used to run the front desk. She'd left 2 years ago after saying the place didn't feel the same anymore. She was now the new head of customer relations. Arlene's first move? Installing a glass wall between the sales desk and the finance office, so nothing could be said behind closed doors that wouldn't be said in plain view. Derrick walked through the lot that Friday, watching how the staff moved. The energy was different. Not perfect, but quieter, more careful. Not out of fear, out of awareness. He stood near the row of sedans and watched a young salesman kneel down next to an older man, explaining the difference between trim levels without talking over him. That was the kind of thing no spreadsheet would show, but it mattered more than any monthly target. Arlene joined him. Looks like they remember who they work for, she said. They better, Derrick replied, because I'm not going anywhere. But there was still one piece left to complete, the reminder of why this mattered in the first place. That Sunday morning, Derrick sat on the porch of his mother's old house in Jackson, Tennessee. The sun was barely up, and the air still held the quiet of early hours. He sipped his coffee slow, staring out at the yard he used to mow every Saturday as a teenager. It had been years since she passed, but everything about the place felt the same. Except now, it was his. A memory wrapped in brick and wood. He pulled out a photo from his jacket pocket. Faded, edges curled. In it, he was no older than 10, standing beside his mother in front of a dull, rust-colored Oldsmobile. The smile on her face was wide, proud. Not because the car was new, it wasn't, but because it was hers. That was the day she'd bought her first vehicle outright. No co-signer, no help, just her. A nurse's paycheck, and a salesman who took the time to explain every paper before she signed it. Derrick remembered how she triple-checked everything, how she asked questions even when her voice trembled, and how the man behind the desk never made her feel small for doing it. He remembered that, and now, decades later, he was the man behind the desk, the man whose name sat above the showroom, the man responsible for how every single customer felt when they walked through his doors. He looked down at the picture again. That moment had shaped him, taught him that dignity wasn't something you earned with money. It was something you deserved just by showing up, by trying. The world didn't give his mother much, but that day, it gave her respect. And that stayed with him. Back at the dealership the following week, Derrick called for a new plaque to be installed by the entrance. It read, "We treat every customer like they're buying their very first car, with dignity, patience, and truth." He didn't need it to go viral. Didn't need PR headlines. He just needed every employee to read it. Every day. Trevor did. Every morning. First thing. Monique came back a month later to get her car serviced. She walked in wearing a hoodie, holding her daughter, and smiled when she saw Trevor behind the desk. "You remember me?" she asked. He smiled back. "Course I do. We got you in that silver Corolla, right?" She nodded. "She's running great." They talked a little more, just small stuff, but it wasn't awkward. Because now, it felt right. Derrick watched from his office, unseen, just observing. He didn't need to be in the spotlight. He didn't want to be. The point wasn't him. The point was this. You don't build a good business on profit. You build it on trust. On the way you treat people when you think no one's watching. He learned that from his mom. He reminded others of it through Brent. And now, with every handshake, every sale, every explanation given without pressure or spin, he rebuilt it. Bit by bit, word by word. That's what soul really is. Not something you claim, something you protect. Because once it's gone, getting it back takes everything you've got. And Derrick Belton wasn't about to let his name mean anything less than the truth. If this story hit you somewhere personal, if it reminded you of a time you were treated like you didn't matter, or a time someone stood up for you when they didn't have to, hit that subscribe button. We've got more stories coming your way that speak to the heart, not just the headline.